यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वञ्जिगातु भेषजम् शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्तिः 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 सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिम् विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष एवेदगम् सर्वम् यद्भूतं यच्च भूयम् उतामृतत्वस्येषानः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागिश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतम् दिवि त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदैत्पुरुषः पादोऽस्येहाभवात् पुनः ततो विश्वम् व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्माद्विराडजायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चाद्भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यम् ग्रीष्म इद्मः शरद्धभिः सप्तास्यासन् परिधजः त्रिः सप्त समिधः कृताः देवागद्यज्ञम् तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषम् पशुम् तं यज्ञम् बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषम् जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्चजे तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतम् वृषदाज्यम् पशोगस्तागश्चक्रे वायम्यान् आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्चजे तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जज्ञिरे छन्दागुंसि जज्ञिरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभजादतः गावोह जज्ञिरे तस्मात् तस्माज्जाता अजावजः यत्पुरुषम् व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखम् किमस्य कौ बाहू कावूरूपादावुच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहूराजन्यः कृतः ऊरू तदस्य जद्वैश्यः पद्भ्यागम् शूद्रो अजायत चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षोः सूर्यो अजागत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणात् वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षम् शीर्ष्णोद्यौः समवर्तत पद्भ्याम् भूभिर्दिशः श्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागम् अकल्पयन् वेदाहमेतम् पुरुषम् महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णम् तमसस्तु पारे सर्वाणि रूपाणि विचित्य धीरः नामानि कृत्वाभिवदन् यदास्ते धाता पुरस्ताद्यमुदा जहार चक्रः प्रविद्वान् प्रदिशश्च तस्रः तमेवम् विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था अजनाय विद्यते यज्ञेन यज्ञमजन्त देवाः तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् ते हनाकम् महिमानः सचन्ते यत्र पूर्वे साध्याः सन्ति देवाः अभ्यः सम्भूतः पृथिव्यैरसाच्च विश्वकर्मणः समवर्तताधि तस्य त्वष्टा विदधद्रूपमेति तत्पुरुषस्य विश्वमाजानमग्रे वेदाहमेतम् पुरुषम् महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णम् तमसः परस्तात् तमेवम् विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था विद्यते जनाय प्रजापतिश्चरति गर्भे अन्तः अजायमानो बहुधा विजायते तस्य धीराः परिजानन्ति योनिम् मरीचीनाम् पदमिच्छन्ति वेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानाम् पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो रुचाय ब्राह्मये रुचम् ब्राह्मम् जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे तदब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवम् ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा असन्वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनम् व्याप्तम् इष्टम् मनिषाण अमुम् मनिषाण सर्वम् मनिषाण ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः
Beautifully chanted. So let's begin the class with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So welcome to class number 16. So we are doing this verse. Tasmat yagyat sarvahutaha sambhritam prishadajyam pashugastagaschakre vayavyana aranyan gramyaschaye. So this is the second verse that Swami Maheshananji has taken in the sequence, even though in the Krishna Yajurveda this comes a little bit later on. But anyway, we're going to follow the lead of Swami Maheshananji. So in this verse, there are several what I would consider to be important concepts. So an important concept means one that can make a material difference in my life. If I understand it and follow the guidelines, seeing the clarity of it as the Shastra has provided, then it can make a very significant progress, difference in my life. This is what I would call an important concept. So there's a lot of concepts in here, but I just thinking this morning that there are 5 concepts that we should be aware of and be familiar with. So what I did was I wrote down these 5 concepts on this cue card, and I'm just going to show this to you. Unfortunately, I don't have the English transliteration of this. This is all in Devanagari, but I will, of course, I will translate that in English. So before I show this to you, the 5 are: number 1, Yajna Homa, which we did last week, and we're, I think, pretty much done with that. Concept number 1. The second one is the mixing up of Karana Karya in our life. As my embracing myself in the role of either Karana or as a Karya. Karana, I'll explain the English translation in a minute. So let's just keep it to the Devanagari. So the second concept is Karana Karya mixing up. Mishri Karanam. The third one is the concept of Pashu. The fourth one is the concept of Bhojya and Bhokta. Again, I'm just limiting myself to the Sanskritam. Bhojya and Bhokta. And the last concept is Aranya Gramya. And these are the 5 concepts which what we will do is to study them relatively isolated by themselves, and then begin to see the interrelationship between all these 5 concepts as they apply to my life. So this is what we're going to do. So now I will show this card to you. Hopefully you will be able to read this. So these are the 5. So the first one is Yajna and Homa. Yajna Homa. The second one is Karana Karya mixed up together. The role of the Karana Karya. The third one is Pashu. The fourth one is Bhojya and Bhokta. And the last one is Aranya and Gramya. So these are all given in this verse itself. The only concept which I did not write down, although I'm going to talk about it, in addition to these 5, is what is given here as Vayavyan. Vayavyan means related to Vayu. Related to Vayu, the pranaha, the presence of life in me, in the form of a Vayu, it's what's called Vayu, and so here that is also talked about. That's also pretty important, but I just didn't have space, so I just put down 5, although Vayavyan also would be important. So these are all given in this verse. Unlike some of the other verses where some of the concepts did not appear in the verse, here all of them really appear very explicitly. So Tasmat Yajnat Sarvahutaha. So there the Yajna and Homa have been dealt with. Hutaha means the Homa has been Kritaha. Homa Kritaha means the one that has already been done or is to be done well is called Hutaha. So Yajna Hutaha is the first concept, and we dealt with it last week, that our life should be considered to be first of all a Yajna, means that it's an offering offering a dravya, which is my hang-ups. Really, that's the thing. Hang-ups with respect to myself is the dravya that is offered. I should really offer it to the Lord. And the second one is the devata. So here the devata could either be Ishvara or the Atma. And really the two are one and the same, as we should try to understand that there is complete identity between Parameshvara and Jivatma. Paramatma and Jivatma. And so this has to be presented. And Kriya here means that my life itself is a Kriya, and I use that to offer that to because anything which is not useful to me should be given up. And so according to then the study here, my hang-ups should not be useful to me. I think they are useful to me. I stick by them sometimes thinking that they might yield some good results, but they don't. And so we understand that really give up those hang-ups. And so that is and they do it not as a normal yajna, but as a homa. Homa means that there is a time period involved. And so, in fact, in putting plants into it, it is not only the prayatna, not only the effort of putting the plant in, which you have to know. You have to know exactly which seed has to be planted in which season and what the conditions ought to be. This is yajna. But then there is also kala. And so it is important for you to know that the results will come slowly and you have to keep nurturing it. So that's the part of the homa. Anyway, so with that, with the first concept of yajna and homa is now over. So now we go to the second concept, which is called cause and effect. So this is given in the second mantra of this whole mantra. The first one is Tasmat Yajnat Sarvahutaha. Second one is Sambhritam Prishadajyam. So Sambhritam means they appear mixed up. They are all mixed together. Hard to separate. Sambhritam means that they are all hard to do viveka in. Just like for a child, if you put down the something in my eye, let me see. There, I'm okay now. Just like if you have the fire and the iron ball to a child, if you present a heated iron ball in front of a child, the child will say this is the way the iron ball is. When in fact there is this kind of mixing up of karana and karya. Whereas in fact those are completely separate things. The fire is separate from the iron. And so that is the wisdom about it. So here also we need to think about the wisdom applying to karana and karya. And karana means the cause and karya means the effect. And that is given here in the word Prishat Ajyam. Prishat Ajyam. So Prishat means yogurt, curd, a milk which has been well prepared. And Ajyam means the ghee, the very sacred ghee which is used in all of the yajnas. and in fact a Ayurvedic pure form of, you can call it oil, but a very, very healthy. So ghee has a lot of significance to it. And it comes from the most sacred animal on earth, which is a cow. And so the cow becomes a very important contributor to both the yajna and homa. This is why it is so sacred for us. We can't even think about killing it, let alone mistreating it. And anyway, that's a separate topic we'll go over some other time. So, Sambritam Prishadajyam. So, Prishad means the milk or yogurt is the Karana. And Ajyam, which is the ghee, is the Karya. It is the effect. So, from the milk and yogurt comes the ghee in a different form altogether. It's amazing when you look at ghee that you wouldn't even tell that this came from the milk. So here is the situation. What is said here is that the way the whole creation has been designed by Ishvara, by the Purusha, everyone and everything in the whole creation is both a cause and an effect. Nothing is a pure cause and nothing is a pure effect. It's all mixed up together. So what is a cause of something is in fact an effect of something else. So like the typical thing that a mother of a child is herself the daughter of another mother, grandmother. And so this happens there all the time. And now you find that you cannot really see them apart easily. So what's the significance of this? Why are we discussing this in this form? So here's the situation. Your attitude and my attitude towards things in life should be in the form that the cause and effect are all rolled into one. So for instance, take the present president and the present situation in the United States. So the entire country, and in many ways the rest of the world, has become an effect of the cause of some unwise presidency. We are the effects and the president is the cause. But is it really true that the president is a cause and we are the effect? Are we not the cause of electing him? Isn't the Democratic Party guilty of not doing their homework and never visiting some of the key states where they were taken for granted? Stupidity. Where New York and California were already in the bag of the Democratic Party. And yet they were being visited over and over again for fundraising. And what really made the difference were a few states like Wisconsin and Philadelphia, and 4 or 5 states, Michigan, etc. So are we not the cause of the president? Of course we are. Therefore, as we lament the current situation, we should ourselves think, my goodness, we are the cause. Not clear which is the cause, which is the effect. Exactly the same situation when the British enslaved India for 200 years. and we were really rebelling against him. These are bad people who don't understand our culture, and they are changing the educational system. All of that they did, no doubt about it. But are we not the cause of letting the British come in and enslave us? Absolutely. We were not united. We didn't understand what they were doing. They were too clever for us. One by one, they put one Raja against the other. And very soon, the whole country was in their hands. Who is the cause of the British enslaving us? We ourselves are. So many examples like this. Same thing on the China threatening India at this moment. We let them do it for so long, for the last 70 years. And now we are lamenting that they are really taking our ground and so on. They are not the cause, we are the cause. Anyways, you can just go on on this. So, here is the bottom line on this cause and effect thing. Okay? If you look at what we draw from this, you have to go back to the basic constituents of cause and effect. Okay? And those are two. One is Chaitana Vastu, one which is a conscious entity, and the other one is inert, which is totally dependent on the conscious entity. We have taken this example many times, that this is exactly like the electricity and the appliance. So here the electricity, relatively speaking, is the conscious entity, independent of the appliance, formless, very powerful, and really everything depends on it. And the appliance is inert, has no electrical source of its own. It depends upon the electricity. So the two of them are now mixed up. So one is Jada and the other one is Chaitana. Okay? So now comes the bottom line. If we look at an unwise person versus a wise person, a wisdom versus unwisdom, non-wisdom. The non-wisdom mistakenly blames the Jada to be responsible for his or her problems. This is what is called, I will use this word, these two words quite often. One is called Viveki, the one who is discriminating, who's wise. Viveki here would mean that a person who understands that the fire intrinsically is hot, the iron is not intrinsically hot, and even though the iron ball looks very hot, it's going to lose it very soon because the fire has been removed from it. This is the Viveki. The Aviveki, just the opposite of that, would be one who thinks, no, the iron is independently hot. The iron is only hot from a transactional purposes. Yes, I wouldn't touch a hot iron either. I cannot touch it and say, oh, you know what, the iron is not hot, I can touch it. No. But you just wait for a few minutes, it's going to cool down, and the fire still keeps burning. And so these are the two words that I will use, various terms. I'm just defining it here. Viveki and Aviveki. So in terms of the Karana Karya, the mixing up of Karana Karya, this is why this is an important concept. And Aviveki tends to blame the world for his or her problems. This is the situation. My whole attitude is that, you don't sit around and saying, I blame others. That's not how we do it. It's that I'm just overstating it. It's not like though you say, okay, I think Trump is to blame, I think this is to blame, I think that is to blame. You don't do that. But you wait for the world to reform itself before you are satisfied. This is exactly the same thing I'm saying, that you are depending on the world. You're blaming the world. And sometimes you're blaming yourself. And the one that you are blaming yourself sometimes, this is what the problem is. People have an opinion about themselves which is not very good. And this is an important thing to really think about, because the others can come and go, but you have to live with yourself. So if you have a low opinion, then that is much more damaging to you. Now, when you have an opinion about yourself, that is also yourself as a jada vastu. See, you cannot have an opinion about the sakshi that you are, because the sakshi is not available for you to look at. You are the one who's looking at it. And so the self-blame as well as the blaming of the others is done by an aviveki. And what does a viveki do? Viveki says, don't get entangled in the blame game. Just solve the issue. Swami Viditatmananda had given this example about Gautama Buddha. Apparently Gautama Buddha had shown this. He says, if there is a person who is walking and he gets hit by an arrow, in those days, there were no guns. You can say even about guns, but you can just say arrow pierced his back, and he fell down, and he was bleeding heavily, and a lot of people came to his rescue. And so he kept asking everybody, who did this to me? And why did he do it to me? What happened? So the people said, listen, don't ask these questions that you can ask later. Right now, get yourself admitted into a hospital. We're going to take you right now. We're going to call 911 and treat this wound that is going to kill you potentially. And if you survive, you can ask these philosophical questions later on. So Viveki, with respect to Karana Karya, number one, there are two steps to this. Number one says, we're talking about attitude, not your actions per se, but your whole attitude towards life. Is I am not going to spend a single emotional part of my energy in blaming anybody. Either blaming others or blaming myself. All of them are all mixed up. In fact, I would say, this is a Viveki talking. The Viveki says the way I would do that is, which is really the truth, the Chetana Vastu gives a support to the Jada. And it is really, if you say this is exactly what is happening. And so if you want to really put a blame to someone, it is all on me. The Chetana Vastu. I am giving support to this. So just like the example of a dream, if you have a bad dream, don't blame, why did I have a bad dream? What did I eat last night or something? You gave the reality to the dream. Wake up from it. So in terms of, now we can close off this second topic, which is Karana Karya appearing one. It says, your experiences of life will never be able to be completely sorted out. Why was I born this way? Who was my mother? Why was she born and father was born this way? How did they get together and make me? What's my? Don't go into all of that. There's no need to. It doesn't yield any results whatsoever. Try to go into a clarity. Try to understand the clarity between who you really are and what you think the whole world is, including your own body-mind complex. The body-mind complex is also part of the world, not part of you. And so gain that clarity. And so there, the Karana and Karya are are broken apart, if you want to. They're all mixed up together. They're unmixed. Only then, later on, you will find that the jada which appears to threaten you and gives you problem is really done with your support, and if you withdraw support to it, it will wither away. If the electricity says, I'm not going to support you, that's it. There's nothing that the world can do to you. This is the reason for this yajna, which is actually a homa, to be done in the form of sambhritam prashadajyam. Okay? So, this is our second concept. How are we doing with time? 8:30. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is very briefly talk about the third one, which is Pashu. But really leave, because that's very simple to understand, but leave the explanation of the importance of this concept Pashu until Bhojya and Bhokta are explained later. Okay, so we will. I just did it Pashu because that's how it first appears. Pashu gastagas chakre vayavyan, and vayavyan also is a very important thing, and I probably will not get to it today. We will maybe do that next time, but we will spend much more time on Bhojya and Bhokta, which is actually not explicitly stated in this verse, but it is part of the definition of Pashu. So if you're asking, where is Bhojya and where is Bhokta, this is an explanation of the concept of Pashu. So I just set it out separately because it's an important concept, and Swami Maheshananji spends a fair amount of time in his commentary on understanding Bhojya and Bhokta. So with that, let us start with Pashu. So Pashu means something which is tied together and makes it dependent on being tied together. So Pashu means an animal. And so really the Pashu means an animal which has been like a cow, which has a rope tied to it so that it cannot escape, and so it becomes a Pashu. Or dogs that you don't allow to go outside because it might run away, and you keep it inside the home, is also a Pashu. And also birds that they go back to their own nest, they cannot fly away too far from the nest, is also a Pashu. So like that, there are concepts of the animals. But the human beings are considered to be pashus, potential pashus of the devatas. Devatas have kept us binding. How is very interesting. We say that the devatas like Varuna, Indra, and all the other devatas, Agni devata, etc., they have the human being as their pashu. Kind of like, just like their dogs that are the pashu of a family, and so we are the pashus of devatas. How? Because they are present in us in a form that I am dependent on them. So, for example, take a very simple thing. I am dependent on Agni, the fire. If I get too cold, I am nervous, and if I am very cold, I can die. I want to keep myself as warm as possible under the circumstances. Similarly, food. If I don't get food, then I starve. So there are devatas for all of these aspects of myself. There's a Devi for muscles. If you don't exercise your muscles, then you lose it. Use it or lose it. And so I am actually dependent on the presence of the various factors in my own life. And I cannot go more than 3 or 4 or 5 hours without food. There are devatas for all aspects of your body, kidneys, heart, everything, elimination system. And so I am under the pashu of those people. And so I am under the control of them. So the pashu means pashena baddha. So pasha means something which is a rope. So pashena baddha means one which is tied to a rope. And here this is figuratively, I am really tied to the fact that I want to live and live happily. And I am totally dependent on all the devatas. To make matters worse, I don't even know I am dependent on the devatas. I don't give them any credit for it. I take them for granted. I am oblivious of their presence. But I am a pashu. But I don't have to be a pashu. Is that really right? Just like a dog is always a pashu, a cow is always a pashu, a human being, does it always have to be pashu? No. I can be independent. How? That is explained by this next concept, which I think we'll spend the rest of the time on. This is a very important concept. This is called Bhojya Bhokta Bhavaha. Bhavaha means the very sense of, understanding of what? Bhojya Bhokta. So what is Bhojya and what is Bhokta? So they both come from the same root, book. And Bhojya means one which is enjoyed, one which is the object of enjoyment or of suffering, the range of emotions, the possession, the wealth, the thing which is at the mercy of the bhokta. And bhokta is the one who is enjoying. So in this concept, Bhojya is dependent and bhokta is independent. And so, seen from this perspective, a bhojya is a pashu. And we need to modify this definition a little bit. Not all bhojyas are pashu, but forced bhojyas are pashu. And there is another variation of bhojya, which means willing bhojya. We'll explain all this with examples in a minute. I'm just giving you the lay of the land. So bhojya in general, because it is not voluntary, okay, leads to the entity becoming a pashu. Okay? Like, for example, you can say, now the dogs are slightly different because, they have a certain loyalty towards and that's why they enjoy so much comfort, especially the American dogs here, Western dogs. They have a loyalty towards their master or mistress. And so they are given a lot of freedom and a lot of comfort and so on. But in general, a pashu means one who wants to get away. Like, for example, a bird in a cage wants to go away desperately, but it remains a bhojya. It remains something that you enjoy as a bhokta. Wow, look at this beautiful bird. This poor bird is just sitting there, cannot fly away, but you are enjoying it. So bhojya and bhokta. Okay, so this is the concept. We're going to spend some time on this. Okay, so let's see some examples of this. So for instance, you have a hired worker, a laborer, who you have hired to dig up some dirt in your garden. He or she has gotten some strength in the body, and you don't have that, and so you give them some money, $15 an hour, whatever the wage is, and the labor is working for you. So at that time, the bhojya is the laborer and you are the bhokta. You can put your arms like this and say, how is it coming? We're not making a lot of progress. I hope you're working hard and not taking too many coffee breaks. And these days it's not coffee breaks. It's interesting. We do hire a lot of labor in our property. They're on their cell phone half the time. And justifiably so, because they're looking for the next job. Because your job is only about 4 or 5 days old. After that, they have to start looking for another one. How are they going to do it? So they are on the phone. And sometimes they're on talking to their children. Their wife wants to pick them up from the school. Anyway, so they are the bhojya and you are the bhokta. Now, this one handyman that I have was a wonderful guy. I just love him. My only problem is too many of my friends have borrowed him, and when I need him, he's never there. And I just had a talk with him. I says, Ezekiel is his name, Easy, we call him Easy. And I have really helped him for a long time, and he's very indebted to me. But I let him just go to a lot of my friends, and then they have other friends, and so sometimes I call him, and he would say, "Oh, I'll be right there." So the other day I really need to get some work done, and so I said, "Easy, please don't forget me. He says, oh no, I'm very sorry, I'll come, and so on. Anyway, I give him his wages at the end of a week. This is our arrangement. So he and his helpers all come for the whole day, and I've asked him, do you want it at the end of a day? He says, no, at the end of the week is okay. And so during the week he goes to Home Depot, he gets a lot of stuff, and all of that he does, and at the end of the week he gives me a slip, and he says, this is what you owe me. And there are times where I either don't have the cash or my computer is down. Usually I write him a check. And this guy is standing outside. So Swami Maheshanji makes a very beautiful time. He says, during that time, he becomes the Bhokta. And I am the Bhojya. Why? Because I am scrambling. I'm looking at my wallet. I'm saying, I asked my wife, I says, do you have a $20 bill? Actually, more than that. $100 bill. And so she says, no, I don't. And I'm looking at this, it's only 150. I owe him like 200. Then the darn computer is not working because of the printer is not working. It's not printing checks. And this fellow is just sitting there saying, I gotta go, please pay up. And I am uncomfortable. And I sometimes, this has happened, honestly. I tell you, easy, I'm very sorry. Can I do it on Monday? So he says, okay, but I have to pay the other people. I said, I am really sorry. The Swami Maheshananji says, at that time, he becomes the Bhokta and you are the Bhojya. And this interchange of, like the Karana Karya, this interchange of Bhojya and Bhokta happens all the time. And so, for example, you are sitting in a bus, the bus driver is the Bhojya and you are the Bhokta. And when you are riding in some train or BART or something like this, then you are the Bhojya because you have to make sure that the taxes are paid, not just the taxes, but the fee is paid, tickets are paid. And so there is an interchange of Bhojya and Bhokta that happens all the time. Okay, so that's a general example. Okay, now let's move forward. See, there's something that I missed there I wanted to say. Yeah, so one very simple thing. When you want to see something like this table, the table is the Bhojya and the I is the Bhokta. And then the I becomes a Bhojya and the mind becomes a Bhokta. As we are studying in the Drik Drishya Viveka. Something is Drik, something is Drishya. So the Drik is always a Bhokta and the Drishya is always a, usually, and I won't say always, is a Bhojya. So those are other examples of okay. Now our tendency is never to become a Bhojya and always be a Bhokta. Therein lies my problem. My desire to either stay as a Bhokta, become a Bhokta, or stay as a Bhokta, never trying to be a Bhojyam. Avoiding the Bhojyam is the cause of my problem. Okay? Like for instance, I want to enjoy, this is really more of an Indian example, but it applies everywhere really for that matter. So if you have this alternate economy, which means that in India they have, the same thing is true in the US also, that if you're working for a company, then your taxes are automatically deducted. But suppose you are a small businessman, then you have to declare what you earn and pay taxes on it. But you don't want to do it. Your normal thing is, I don't want to pay taxes. Because why should I do that? The taxes are so high, and then the government wastes it on other people and so on and so forth. I really don't want to be. I want to be independent. I don't want to pay taxes. You might declare a small one so that the taxpayer doesn't bother you, but most of the time you are lying and you're corrupt. So this is an attempt to become a bhokta and to stay as a bhokta and not become a willing bhojyam. What is the effect of this? This happens in India all the time. The overall revenue from taxes is a very small percentage of what is needed to run the country, and the government cannot give you all the things, and you keep blaming the government that they can't do this, they cannot do this, and you don't want to pay the taxes. Whereas, let's look at the opposite thing. If we are willing to become a bhojyam, this is the concept which is important for us to see. If we are willing to be a bhojyam, it would lead to become an independent bhokta. Because the very nature of a bhokta is enjoyment, isn't it? Right? Bhojyam is dependence. Bhokta is independence. And independence and enjoyment and ananda are the same. I am happy when I am free. I am not happy when I am dependent on something. This is the case. So, as a bhokta, I am of the nature of ananda. And as a bhojya, I am not. So now, here's the situation. If you become a willing bhojya, so in the example of a taxpayer, that is just one example. We have many other things that we can take up if time permits. In the taxpayer's case, if everyone pays their fair share of the taxes and the government runs well, you are happy. Everything is functioning well, as it happens in some of the Scandinavian countries. They are relatively clean, low corruption, well run, and taxes are high, but it is necessary because people are happy. They get what they want to do. So they are willing bhojyas. So now we can draw the conclusion. In order to not be a pashu, I should be a willing bhojya. Willing bhojya means I volunteer to do things that are correct. And so, for instance, in the case of, let's say, let's take the case of a worker. In the case of a worker is, and I'm very, very fortunate to having some help, domestic help, this, that, or the other, who are just willing, and they are very happy to. I also reward them. I give them like extra tips and so on. Both of us are happy. He's independent. I'm independent. He's willingly bhojyam. Whereas if I criticize him and says, you are 15 minutes late today and you only charge me from 8 o'clock and you are here at 8:15. Do you know my workers, they don't even charge me their travel time. I can't tell them many times. They say, no, that's all part of it. Don't worry about it. Lunchtime, they don't even spend more than half hour. Beautiful. Very nice arrangement where I am willing to be a bhojya at times. He is willing to be a bhojya at times. And both of them become natural bhoktas. We have ananda. So the bhokta can either be an attempt to be a boss. You see, that's exactly right. A shopkeeper that doesn't pay enough taxes wants to be the boss. I don't pay taxes to the government. These guys are stupid. Why should I pay it to them? His neighbor might pay and so on. He says, I don't. So as a result, he is critical of the government. He feels guilty. So the bhoktapan, the status of becoming a bhokta is self-imposed, and he becomes a pashu. Pashu in the sense that if he is under the control. And so now, and again, more of an Indian example, there is corruption at all levels. And so you go and you don't want to pay, you want to go through the normal. So the whole government was run on the basis that you did not pay any taxes. And now they have to somehow get the money from you for getting things done. Now you are dependent on these babus for getting 500 rupees here, 1,000 rupees here, waiting for in the court systems, in the offices. You are totally dependent and unhappy. And you all set out to become a bhokta, and you lost it. So this is the important concept in our yajna and homa. And so here Swamiji says, he pointed this out, Ishvara is just the opposite. All the devatas are just the opposite. The sun is a willing bhojya. He serves the whole humanity. The sun god serves the whole humanity. He plays the part. Doesn't ask for any prayers. Any prayers you do is your job. It's not dependent on it. He's got a job to do that Ishvara has done, has given him, and he does the job very well. So also for Vayu, which we are going to come to next time. This Vayavan is a very important aspect of Vayu. All these devatas are bhojyas. Willing bhojyas. And as a result, they are independent. If things burn, don't burn, if people suffer, whatever it is, it doesn't affect them. They are independent. They are happy. So the net of this whole thing is that the way we should live our life, so for example, the charitable dhanam I wrote to you, I think, today about the aim for seva and so on. Is a very beautiful thing. The charity is a very beautiful, because as a charitable giver, as a donor, you become a willing bhojya. You see? It's a willing bhojya. Because you part your money from you, which something you could have enjoyed yourself, but you say it's okay. I think that I'm willing to part with it. I'm going to give it to someone. It's all right. And do you know what? You end up being far happier because of that. So many benefits of giving charity. You know what the most important benefit of giving charity is? Your own opinion about yourself improves a lot. This is a very important benefit. You have a better appreciation for the person that you are. You like yourself. But it has to be done willingly. And I'm not so sure. I bug the people sometimes and says, I actually, one of my relatives, last year, he reduced his donation, and I had to write. Usually I don't tell people, but my own very close relative, I had to call him and I said, "Hey, what happened? What happened to the charity? We didn't get anything much from you this year." And so now he says, "Oh, okay, I'll give you some more." I'm not a happy camper. But I had to sort of, make sure that we are consistent on a year-by-year basis. And so this was not a willing bhojyam. You see that? Not a willing bhojyam, because to refuse to give what was needed and what we had accustomed to getting from him, he did not do that. And it's very possible he might say, this year I saved some money, I didn't give that much for charity. Now we can take a trip to Europe or something like this. Not really a happy situation. Whereas a person who gives willingly, as a willing bhojyam, leads to bhoktritvam, leads to a sense of I'm okay. I'm happy with myself. I'm in good shape. And so this is the concept of, in a nutshell, how not to be a pashu. So we will next take up, I have to, really I think the most important concept in this, all of them are important, I shouldn't really grade them or anything, but this Aranya Gramya, Swami Maheshananji has done a superb job, and really I had to read this many times to really get a good concept of what it means. We'll spend quite a bit of time on it. So I will decide whether I will switch over to the Aranya Gramyash, which is very closely tied to this Pashu and Bhojya and Bhokta concept. Or I take up the very particular concept of Vayavyan, which is more of a sadhana, which is more of a skill that we have to do. And so I'll have to decide. There's in the flow of this logic, we will see, but I will take up one of those next time. But I think that the Sambritam Prasadajyam is done, and the Pashu definition along with the Bhojya and Bhokta are done, Karana Karya are done, and so I think the last one that we will do is Aranya and Gramya. and Vayavya. So with that, I close the class today, and we will go with it next time. Maybe 1 or 2 more classes, and then this particular mantra will be over. And then we will take the next one, which is immediately following this, is Tasmat Yagyat Sarvahutaha Richa Samani Jaggire Chanda Gumsi Jaggire Tasmat Yajus Tasmat Ajayata. So we will take that mantra after we finish this one. Okay? Alright. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Balamani asks, cause and effect, is it cyclical or absolute? Is the previous karma becomes effect? Yes, of course. Yeah, they are, one generates the other. And so the makeup of the world is that prishadajyam sambhritam. In other words, the cause and effect are all a ball of wax, all mixed up together. But then to be able to rise above, that's, you see, this is interesting. Swami Dayananda used to say that. He says, Ishvara is the best recycler in the world that you can think of. And so the same things are used over and over again. When a person dies, then all the constituents of the person are dissolved into its constituents. So the air goes away, and the body is burnt, and some of the ashes go back to it, all the bones and so on. And they are all mixed up in the earth, and then those are the ones that create all of the nutrients from which plants grow and new people take. It's all a big recycling job. And so karma and karma phala also are a recycling situation. Just keeps doing it all together. And so what a Viveki has to do is to rise above that and break that cycle through these various sadhanas that were talked about, which is willing bhojya, and then homa, and giving up hang-ups, all of those kinds of things that we've been talking about. Then you can break the cycle. Otherwise it continues on and on. Anything else? I don't see any other questions. I'll wait for a while. Doesn't appear to be any more questions. So with that, I will take your leave and hopefully we'll see you next week. Om Hari Om.